Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a movie rant. For the second review today, this is going to be a rant, because I did not like watching this. And this rant is going to be for a movie, horror movie or another requel as we call it, that got dumped straight to Netflix, which I don't think is a shock. And that is, of course, for none other than a horror franchise that I do not like, with the exception of 4 movies. And that is none other than the newest movie in the loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Before I get into details, yes, guys, of course, I love the first one. See, this is a Dark Sky Films steelbook of the first one. Okay? The first one's one of my favorite horror movies in cinema. I love part 2. I mean, it's a little too goofy and campy, but it's fun to watch. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Part 2 should have been the end to the franchise. We should have had no more movies after that. Texas Chainsaw 3 was fine, but was not really needed, and it kind of had continuity errors. Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation was a load of bullshit, and we don't need to talk about that movie, so moving on. And then you got the remake Duology. I absolutely love both these movies. This one I enjoy. This one I actually kind of enjoy more. A lot of people shit on this one the most, but I really love this. I really love this one. This one actually kind of captures the tone of the original movie, probably of the follow-ups. The only one with the follow-ups to kind of catch the tone of the original movie, or tries to anyway. And then you had Texas Chainsaw 3D, or on DVD, it was just called Texas Chainsaw. That movie also sucked, but except for the opening scene. Like, you could, if you watch that movie, guys, just only watch the opening scene where the townspeople come and they kill the whole Sawyer family, and after the whole Sawyer family is killed and the house is burned down, then you can shut that piece of shit off quick, and that's the only scene you should watch if you watch that movie. And then you had another prequel, which was the last movie, previous movie to be released in the series, also called Leatherface, 2017. That movie was pretty much a lazy carbon, cheap dollar store copy of The Devil's Rejects. Except if it were set in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Yeah. And now comes our newest one, and now the newest horror franchise to get the requel treatment, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes, they took out the at the beginning of the title, and now it's just called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yep. They can't call it something else, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, let's see, The Next Chapter, or like, but no. If you're gonna revive a horror franchise, you can't call it a sequel name, you now just have to call it the original movie's name, like Halloween 2018, Candyman 2021, Scream recently, which should have been called Scream 5. Nope, that movie's called Scream as well. And now we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre getting this treatment. Although, to be fair, I did kind of like Candyman, Scream, and Halloween 2018. Before I get into details what I thought of this movie, let's get on with the plot. So, the spiritual sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise takes place 47 years later. Yep, red flag right there. Ruth is a 25-year-old San Francisco moneymaker who drags her younger teenage sister with her to Texas on a business trip, out of fear of leaving her alone in the city. The younger sister, Lila, is an amateur photographer who is wheelchair-bound, and it's not long until they're fighting for their lives against a 60-year-old old man version of Leatherface. Yeah. So how was this movie made? Initially, during the development of Leatherface 2017, the producers had the film rights and intention to make 5 more Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. In April 2015, producer Krista Campbell stated that the fate of the potential sequels would largely depend on the financial and critical reception to Leatherface. And you want to know what? Yeah, and we all know it was all terrible results. By December 2017, Lionsgate Millennium Films had lost the film rights. Yes! Never been happy to hear that. Due to the amount of time it took to release Leatherface. In August 2018, it was reported that Legendary Pictures had preliminary negotiations to purchase the film rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, with the studio intending to adapt television and film installments. The following year, Fede Alvarez signed on to the project as producer. In November 2019, Chris Thomas Devlin joined the production as screenwriter. And in February 2020, Ryan Tohill and Andy Tohill were hired to serve as directors for the film, with Angus Mitchell signed on as cinematographer after collaborating on The Dig, a film released in 2018. In May of the same year, it was announced that the film would serve as a sequel to the original film. Like many slasher franchises nowadays, ignore all the other sequels and only acknowledge the original film's existence. And it featured a 60-year-old man version of Leatherface. Notably similar to the approach that Blumhouse Productions took with their Halloween films. But I actually do like those Halloween films. There's a difference. So like I said, I'd never been a Texas Chainsaw fan, but liked some of the movies. The first one, Part 2, the beginning, and the remake. And did this movie join the best, or the great four, I could call them? Well, no! This film, fuck this movie. This was just not the Chainsaw that I could see working. From the beginning, I knew this was going to fail, and guess what? It sucked. Fede Alvarez's feel and his way of making a horror movie, it had it, but the director didn't make this movie to the best Chainsaw movies I'd ever seen. Why did they have the Evil Dead 20 remake director do this? Why couldn't they just have Rob Zombie make this movie? Rob Zombie would have made a way better Texas Chainsaw follow-up than what we got here. Seriously. Yeah, even when Rob Zombie remaked Halloween, he should not have remade Halloween. He should have remade this franchise. This franchise matches his style. So yeah, Rob Zombie should have directed this movie. Not let Fede Alvarez produce this. I couldn't help but feel while watching this film, what was the point? Did we need to continue the story of Leatherface? I mean, he had way too many shitty sequels at this rate that I don't think there's even a franchise worth continuing now. Well, we didn't, and this film proves that we should just be done with Leatherface at this rate. Although visually stunning and some amazing kills, this film can't even overcome its messy scripted bad acting. The film's attempts to recreate a similar plot, lazily copying Halloween 2018, it fails in every aspect, focusing on its new characters and giving Sally almost little screen time. Yeah, all the new characters were just, like every single Texas Chainsaw sequel, unlikable and stupid. I never cared when they died. And in fact, I wanted some of them to even die at some point. These were just every single fucking Texas Chainsaw character. There were a bunch of dumbass teenagers who go on the road to Texas, get stranded there, and are dealing with the cannibal Leatherface. Like every single Texas Chainsaw movie. That just rehashed the same exact plot. The film has themes and wants to show political commentary on guns, racism, etc., but the film's position on those themes is never made clear. The film's somehow anti and pro-gun at the same time. You think the film's going to spread a message about the dangers of racism, judging by the first 20 minutes, but it drops it straight away. This film feels confused. Well, at least it dropped the political bullshit. But anyway, let's get on with the positives I did have with the movie. The negatives I had with the movie. So, for the positives, well, alright, I will say this. Colin Stetson's soundtrack is, I guess, kind of terrifying. It's macabre, it's primordial, it's chaotic, and yet it still retains Stetson's signature sound. The use of every last one during the bus scene actually kind of worked. Stelzner's score elevates the film considerably, perhaps more than it deserves. Good quality too. There is some good gore in this movie. I mean, there are quite a few brutal kills. I mean, there were some kills I liked on display. Like, I did love the bus scene. The bus scene was pretty epic. Like, fans of gore sure appreciate its use in this movie. Like, because there are some brutal kills on display. And 3, there are also some creative ideas at play. Some interesting shots here and there. Too bad the film's script wasn't better. That's pretty much it. And now on to the negatives. Oh boy. My biggest problem with the film is the characters. They are underdeveloped, unlikable, and they come off as spoiled rich assholes with no dissembled personality traits. Like, perhaps this was intentional, but this did not work for me because this was just like every character in every single one of these sequels. This rate. They're just complete idiots that don't think right. Almost every single character in the sequels after 2 are so dumb as a brick that you just don't care if they die. And, like, apparently once again, like Chainsaw 3D, they tried to make us sympathize with Leatherface again. But the unbelievably of his super strength, especially at his old age of 70 years and up, prevented me from seeing any semblance of humanity in his character. Like, and also, another thing, you know his family, the Sawyer family? They're not in this movie! So yeah, what is the point of making a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, I get this was like 40 years later or so, if you can't include the Sawyer family except for Leatherface? Where's the rest of the family? They don't even explain what happened to the rest of the family. At all. So yeah, it's literally only just Leatherface. Just old man Leatherface in this movie. And bad quality number 2. The inclusion of Sally Hardesty was strange to me. On one hand, it felt like they were trying to do right by the original in reincorporating her into the plot, but the film script is so schlocky that I can't help but think she was only included to sucker fans and to think that the film would for once be different than a majority of its horrible sequels that came after Part 2, except for the remake duology, but those are not part of the original series. I'm referring to the sequels after Part 2 in the original series. While the new actress who plays Sally, Owen Furr, was fine, her character is given nothing to do, and she barely has that many scenes. No, really, like, she's only like, I think, 4 scenes, and it's just randomly killed off after that. So, her character being in the movie was pointless. By taking her out of the film, more time could have been spent developing the other dumbass characters, or vice versa. And final bad quality. I was not a fan of the Gen Z approach to this movie. In terms of story, its inclusion felt forced to try and appeal to wider audiences, without understanding what audiences actually want. Everything here feels too refined and modern, something a Texas Chainsaw movie should not have. Texas Chainsaw Massacre deserves to stay in the 70s or the early 80s, only those timelines. No 2010s, no 2020s, no 2000s, 70s, 80s, and that's it. Okay? Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not supposed to be set in modern times. My God. Like, everything here feels... Like, what made the original good? You know, like... Yeah, what made this movie such a masterpiece? It was raw, barbaric tone, not a bunch of hipsters filming Leatherface on their phones. And it borders on to parody. Like, this movie, like, felt so realistic. You actually felt like you were there in the original movie with the characters. Like, it really felt like it actually happened with how it was filmed. No, not this movie. It doesn't care about that. And, like, and let's not forget the way the movie ends. So, the 2 surviving girls, I forget their names, get away, but guess what? Like, how they killed Leatherface seemingly was stupid because they grab his chainsaw, and you may think they're gonna... And when they kill him, they just saw him like this, and he falls, yet they don't bother, like, chopping off his head with it. They have the chainsaw, for Pete's sakes. Like, yeah, this was pretty much a Thanos you should have gone for the head moment, because they don't even bother to just saw off Leatherface's head. Like, they should have just did that because, hey, gotcha, he's still alive. He comes back, he grabs one of the girls out of the car, saws off her head with the chainsaw, and he gets a nice gore there, and the car just drives on its own with the other surviving girl screaming, and we just rip off the ending of the first one, or just copy the ending of the first one, where Leatherface is swinging his chainsaw around, instead of swinging his chainsaw in rage, he's holding her severed head and he's dancing with it. Dancing with her severed head in the streets, just doing a breakdown, just breaking it down in the streets, like, and the movie just ends there, like, abruptly. Like, this movie's like only 81 minutes long, and there's a post-credit scene where Leatherface walks back to his house, which kind of hints that we're probably going to get yet another sequel, depending on how many people watch this, but hopefully it does not happen. But yeah, so overall, this was about on par with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It's pretty much the Rob Zombie's H2 of the Texas Chainsaw movies. Just an awful movie. Way worse than Chainsaw 3D, because at least Texas Chainsaw 3D had a good opening scene. This movie did not. Like, I went into this movie with zero expectations, but even that was too high. This was still not fun to watch regardless. Like, I like a good gory horror movie and stuff. I mean, I did like Halloween 2018. I did like Scream 2022. This did not cut it for me because I'm just not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise fan, except for the first two and the remake films. Like, this movie just tried way too hard and got it all wrong by trying to cash in on those movies' successes. So yeah, my recommendation is you avoid this movie at all costs, because it's probably the second worst TCI movie ever, but if I had to pick watching this or Next Generation, I pick this because I'd rather watch any bad horror sequel over that pile of shit known as the Next Generation any single day of my life. Anyway, that's it for my rant on this dreaded movie, and here's how I'm going to rank it. I am going to give Texas Chainsaw 2022 a 3 out of 10. Okay, now that we released enough movies in this franchise, can we just let this franchise, Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, just go die now, please? Because I think we can all agree we have had enough of these terrible sequels. And honestly, when it comes to killers being brought back, I'd rather see Jason be brought back or Freddy be brought back. I mean, we've already brought back Michael Myers, we already brought back Chucky, we've already brought back Ghostface, we brought back Candyman, so can we have Chucky, can we have Jason or Freddy Krueger come back and make have Freddy Krueger make, one more movie? Just Robert Englund do one more Freddy Krueger movie. I'd like to see, a proper sequel to Jason Lives. One that actually brings back Tommy Jarvis, where he re-encounters Jason again. I'd rather see another Jason come back, at least. Or Freddy come back next. But, yeah. Until then, that'll be it for this rant, guys. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more. And don't forget to like, subscribe to Movie Lover 120. Now, if you'll excuse me, guys, I gotta go get ready for tomorrow morning. I gotta get a video game I'm gonna bring signed by some video game actors, and yeah, I gotta get my costume ready for the con tomorrow, so, yeah, I guess I'm going to a con tomorrow. But yeah, so stay tuned for that video. I think should probably happen around 6 p.m. Yeah, so stay tuned for then, and thank y'all for watching.